Hi, I'm Thomas Broadhead. I am the editor of the Critical Performance edition of the Ives Fourth Symphony. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a tweak to the orchestral piano part, a little cue that was suggested by Peter Etfish, the conductor at the premiere of the edition, which apparently has helped pianists negotiate a rather tricky passage. So let's take a look at it. So here we're looking at a passage in the fourth movement at measure 40. And what's going on here is every 5 quarter notes of the 3/2 meter, that's the main meter for the entire orchestra, except for certain instruments, of course, is being subdivided into 4 beats by the orchestral piano player, the first player. There is a second player who plays occasionally, but mainly there's just one orchestral pianist who's playing. I'm not talking about the solo pianist, I'm talking about the orchestral piano that has been a part for 2 players and previously in the second movement. At any rate, Ives notates the part in 5/4, where quarter note equals quarter note between the 5/4 meter and the 3/2 meter. But every measure of this 5/4 metering is subdivided into 4. And this continues like this until the last 5/4 measure, in which case it reverts to an equal quarter note between it and the quarters in the 3/2 of the main orchestra. So how do you pull off this subdivision, which has all these internal triplets? Well, what I noted was that in the passage that precedes it, you have lots of quarter eighth and 8 quarter rhythms, regular rhythms not subdivided. And it works out that a subdivision, this 8th quarter here that I'm pointing out with my cursor, is exactly equal to the triplet here. So it's a dotted quarter of the previous measure equals a quarter of the quartuplet of the 5/4 group. And so I point that out on the part, explaining, that 3/8 of the previous measure equals 3 triplet beats of the quartuplet of the 5/4 going into this passage. And that was the best that I could do to help this out. But then I observed Peter Etfish giving an instruction to a player on how to conceptualize this passage. And I thought, wow, he knows this score. He's done this before. I'm going to assume he knows better than I do, and I'm going to encode that in the score so people can benefit from it. And here's what it looks like. So Etfish showed the player that what's really going on in the part is the subdivision of every 5/16 of the 3/2 is equaling a beat in the 5/4 that is notated for them to play. So if you look at this cue staff that I've added, which is what Etfish was explaining to the player, it's done, 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 like that. So I've retained the explanation that I had originally written for this, where the dotted quarter equals the quarter of the quartuplet and so on from the previous measure to the current measure. But I've added in this cue line, showing this rhythmic cue. And some players seem to benefit from it. Others, I'm not certain, could. But so long as it's helping some people out. Personally, I don't think that I could follow the main conductor and keep track of this kind of internal subdivision and then impose it upon what I am attempting to execute here and then accomplish it. That just isn't the way that my musical, mathematical machinery works in my own mind. But everyone conceptualizes music and math and all this differently. And for some people, this seemed to work. So had I not been present to witness what Etfish was suggesting to the player, I would have known that this was something that could be added to the part to help people. Now, it's one thing to put it in the part. Shouldn't the conductor know about it as well? Well, here's what I did. So here is the corresponding page in the full score showing how this part was presented when the materials went out to Lucerne for the premiere. All that exists is the tempo relation that I had originally clarified, that a dotted quarter of the previous measure equals a quarter of the quartuplet of the 5/4 bar. But once I've added in Etfisch's suggestion to the part, I felt that the conductor should know that it's there as well, because the conductor could then capitalize on it in some way by cueing the player especially and so on. So here is how it was revised, where I've just added in the initial measure of that rhythmic cue. There was no need to spell it out in full. I felt it was enough just to put in the first part of it so a conductor could look to see what's there. And it says orchestra piano relationship to beats in main orchestra. And I wrote, etc., reproduced in full in the orchestra piano part. So that way, the conductor knows that it's there in full for the player. And with luck, it will help players out when they're trying to negotiate this rather tricky passage.